Welcome to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Host Randy Chevrier and Sheldon Napastia guide you through great stories that spark great conversations. Two really big guys talking a big game. The boys are locked in and ready to go. Welcome to The Ride.
As our man Rubio says in the comments, it is showtime. Welcome to The Ride yet again on a Tuesday night. I'm Chevy, he's Nasty. This is The Ride with Chevy and Nasty, brought to you each week by Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media, and YYC Business. Remember, guys, you can find us everywhere you go for podcasts and social networks at Chevy and Nasty. Sheldon, welcome to the 66th episode of the show.
Yeah, there we go. Episode 66. So I didn't get to put my 2 cents in this week, but I understand Trey's got a selection of 66s for us to take a look at here.
There's a lot going on there. So let's start with the greatest 66 on that page is Mario. Now, a lot of attention in the last few weeks on Wayne Gretzky and his legacy. We're going to talk politics today. We're going to talk sports, but Wayne Gretzky crossing that line between politics and sports because of the temperature of Canada right now. But where does Mario rank for you as the greatest of all time?
Okay, first of all, I would put them equally in terms of politics. I don't think Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, no. Forget about the politics, the sports. I'm talking about hockey.
I'll tell you what. Is almost unfortunate in a sense that he'll always be looked at as a number 2. But I don't think anybody holds any disregard or lower regard for Mario Lemieux. Like, he's probably the best physical player of that generation. I mean, he's right up there. I think there's only one great one, but I mean, I don't think there's anybody that's going to replace number 2 anytime soon on that list. Do you?
Yeah. And the thing with Mario, he's hampered by some injuries in his career. Twice, I believe he had to cut short his career because of, or cut short and return because of I believe he was dealing with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, if I'm not mistaken. That might be totally false. Trey could tell me.
I thought it was a back problem.
He had a back problem, but I think he also had cancer that he was dealing with. But yeah, he had left and come back a couple times. But you got to understand, being from Montreal, when you thought about that race 1 and 2, everyone in the East was pulling for Mario just to be the best. But we mentioned it a few weeks ago when we were talking Four Nations Cup, to see Mario and Gretzky on the ice in the Canada Cup. I believe it was in '88. Was very similar to what I can assume kids that love Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid, seeing them on the ice. So our generation, 40-year-olds like us, grew up in the 80s. We were treated to 2 of the greatest athletes on the ice of all time. And now the younger kids with Sid and McDavid, they get that as well. But on the other side, we got Stanley Bryant. That's Stanley Bryant, former teammate of mine. Great. I mean, he's going to the Hall of Fame. He etched out such a career for himself. A couple of years in Calgary, or 3 years in Calgary from 2012 to 14. And the rest of the time, he's been in Winnipeg for the last 10 years. So he has a 13-year career as an offensive tackle in the CFL at the highest level. And what does he have? 4 Grey Cups? A pretty special player. But I was talking to Trey. I was looking at the list of famous 66s for the Stampeders, and you had mentioned, I believe, in our text before the show, Alexandre Gaultier.
Oh yeah, Alexander, another big dude, offensive tackle, and a stud himself. I don't think he had quite the accolades that Stanley Bryant did, but Alexander Gauthier, I remember he's like 6'6", 300 and probably 20 pounds, but like just the coolest cat you've ever met. A French guy, Quebec guy, loved to go to Hawaii just to go surfing. Like a big dude, but athletic, super cool. Every day I walked into the clubhouse, he would greet me with a hug. I love that guy so much. We never hung out off the field or outside of the stadium a whole lot, but I just loved seeing him every single day. So much so that my son, Kai, his middle name, Alexander.
Oh, nice. And Alexander Gauthier, French Canadian from Laval, came to, and he's from a very remote region of Quebec. And his wife is purely French Canadian, made Calgary their home. And this is where they live. And I know he's a proud Calgarian. He works, I believe, in the oil services. Every time I see him, it's like we'd never left. But I was telling Trey this, just to wrap up the talk on the 66. From 2005 to 2014, I played with every 66 that was with the Stamps, and it's crazy the guys that went through, like Stanley Bryant, we mentioned, Tim O'Neill, great center for the Stamps, John Estes, who's now a U.S. college coach, Alexander Gauthier, Garrett Jones, I believe he was a teammate of yours, maybe in Saskatchewan, maybe? I don't know. He bounced around the league as well. So, yeah, a lot of 66s, but then after 2014, no one wore number. So I wonder if it's retired because of some of the great 66s that existed for the Stampeders, like what's his name? George Hansen. Could it be Lloyd Fairbanks? Those are two great 66s that played for the Stamps. We got to get on. We're going to move off of sports and we're going to go into the thing that we always do. The comments are heating up. I see a lot of guys and gals maybe in the Gretzky or Mario talk. Keep that going. And while you guys are doing that, we are going to hit some 300-pound poetry to set the tempo for the day. Yeah, turn that phone on.
300-pound poetry with Chevy and Nasty.
Chevy and Nasty action. This show is live, and we've got some traction.
5 years ago today, a global pandemic declared. We got hit with the vid, and everybody got scared.
But we survived that mess. That caused isolation and resistance, forced to wear masks, wash our hands, and enforce social distance.
But in current affairs, we have a brand new prime minister. If he doesn't call an election soon, it'll be something quite sinister.
And in response to U.S. tariffs, Doug Ford said he's going to cut off the power. Then Donald Trump backed down amid fears of a darkened Trump Tower.
So yes, we'll talk sports on this ride and some men's health too, but we can't help it right now because world politics is a zoo.
They sure are a zoo.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Doesn't it just add so much to like the NFL off seasons, NFL, CFL off season to have all this going on? I mean, every day, 3 different things happen.
Yep.
Right.
And then
in the middle of it, from the sense of like, I think Trump at one point doubled the tariffs on Canada earlier today. Then Doug Ford backed down after a talk with Lutnick or whatever his name is. And then they made peace. But in the midst of that, they brought back the fact that today is the 5-year anniversary to the day that they began shutting down the West. Do you remember that? Like, I think it was March 13th was the day we were officially locked up in our houses. And I had to drive by downtown that day and it was eerie. Nobody was on Deerfoot. Nobody was in Memorial. Like, do you remember the day and what it felt like when the COVID first hit Calgary?
I remember exactly on a Friday afternoon going into a long weekend. I brought my boys down to Bowness Park. It was a snowy winter day. We had the day off. And I brought them out and we roasted hot dogs out in the snow. We played in the playground. We played tag. I brought my radio out listening to tunes and it was just us in the park. And I said, isn't this amazing that we could get to do this in this wonderful country? Go outside in a mild winter day or spring day, whatever you want, roast hot dogs, have fun. And then all of a sudden on the radio, they talk about everything shutting down. And then it got real when I was at the fire hall a couple days later and the sports leagues shut down. That's when it became real. When the NBA, I believe the NBA was the first domino to fall. Then the NHL a couple of days later, and I was like, "Whoa, this thing is legit." But that's what I remember. This very surreal feeling, like you mentioned. And then again, empty roads. I switched jobs in the fire department, working from home for 2 years, and all the other, warranted and unwarranted nonsense that we had to go through to get this to pass. It was nuts.
Yeah. Now for me, I mean, like, we're two totally different guys. I know you're like the extrovert that likes to be out for coffees and things every day. I don't care if I don't see somebody for a week. Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you miss from those days though? Because for me, what followed from that is once they shut it down, and it was tough because I was in real estate and it was really hard to carry on business. So you kind of just took the next 6 months. My family and I, we just went out to our trailer at Lake Koocanusa and literally spent probably 4 of the next 6 weeks just at the lake.
Yes.
Not March, but come like May, June, we were just out at the lake.
Well, and that's great that you got to be with your family, and I think that's amazing, because what I miss was the family dinners, not having to rush, like, get home from work, cook something super fast, because then you got to run to a rink, and by the time you're home at night, it's 11 o'clock, and you do dishes, and you're right back up for work. The pace of life was a little slower. The family was around more often when I had my boys, but what I don't miss was the flip side to that. I was in a stage where I was still working in the fire halls, shift work. I didn't have my boys for an extended period of time. And when I changed jobs, I still didn't get my boys. I went 10 days without seeing my kids, 10 days without knowing what they were up to. My kids have phones at that time, but they're not texting me. They're not calling me. I couldn't go visit them at the rink and watch them play or practice, see what they're up to. When they were at their mom's house, it was kind of like Fort Knox. So I didn't get to see them for 10 days in a row. So I don't miss that loneliness and isolation, although I did get an epiphany during that time. My epiphany was that this is how you feel like when you age. My girlfriend lived an hour and a half away and she had kids of her own. All my family's in Montreal, no friends coming over. For someone who's very social, I realized how lonely it can be. And I'm a pretty active guy. I have my gym in my basement. I worked every day till 5. I worked out till 7. 5 days I got my kids, 10 days I didn't see them. But in those 10 days, that's where the genesis of me reconnecting with you came from. To start doing something that I didn't have to rely on other people for joy, because everyone's doing their own thing. And when you're alone and isolated and maybe people don't think about you, that's where the show came from. The show, the idea to be like, Sheldon, we got to do this again, because it's not something that someone else is going to give joy. I love doing this show. And in those moments where I felt the extreme isolation of COVID and the pandemic was where I thought we got to get back to this.
Yeah.
And that was my shout out for my own. I was going through a health scare. Remember, I had a tumor in my neck that had to be removed. So that was very scary. No one to lean on. And calling you up and saying, Sheldon, we got to do this. And I remember we had a coffee right when things opened up. I think they opened up for a week or two and then they closed. We went for coffee and said, we're going to do this. And COVID was a blessing. And also did a lot of things. But for me, I felt it was a blessing because it really gave me more purpose and more appreciation of the things that I do have.
Yeah. A lot of kids got kind of screwed over on that whole thing with graduations, or kids that are in grade 6, grade 7 missed out on a lot of that transition experience to junior high. But I'm glad it's behind us. I'm just saying, I sometimes forget about the people that were stuck alone in their own apartments. I mean, that would be horrible, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
For me, it was like a 6-month sabbatical, and it worked out well for my family for the most part.
And you got to be sensitive that there were some people that were super immunocompromised that were scared. I mean, there was a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and really ignorance to what was out there. And again, on all levels, right? And there wasn't a unified message, so people didn't know who to listen to.
At first, they didn't know. Like when this was coming on, is this going to be a nasty flu bug that swipes through for 3 months and everything's back to normal by June? Or is it Ebola? Right? Like we had no idea. And even the experts at that time didn't have an understanding of what was going to happen. And it was, you just kind of had to roll with it.
And it drove people batty, right? Like it drove, and people are still recovering from that because it really shook what's true and comfortable for us. And human beings, we crave comfort, we crave stability, we crave predictability, and it definitely was an unpredictable time. I love the comments. Todd Kozak, he says he misses wearing a face mask and a face shield, standing in the bread line to get. You know what I miss? Empty shelves with no toilet paper. I miss that. I bet Trey took all the toilet paper.
We were fine. We were stocked up for months. I mean, even to this day, if you go into our garage, we have like stockpiles of toilet paper, so we'll never run out again.
Yeah, no, and what is Rubio said? The best thing about the Rona was finding out who would really just take orders over and over without using any common sense. Worst part is, it impacted kids, and but again, to counter Rubio's point, I get it. There's a lot of people who say, well, a lot of people were sheep, but when you grow in a society, you're taught to abide, and it's hard for people to just decide not to abide, and it shakes people's beliefs, because I'm sure even the people that were following the rules had doubts, tough debate.
Because the world split 50-50, because the rest of us are like, okay, 2 + 2 has to equal 4, or I feel like I'm acting in somebody else's drama theater play right now. And there was a lot of things that, looking back, I thought were just goofy.
You know what? Kozak has the best comment on it. Let's wrap it up with his. He hates people. It gave him a break from all the annoying people. And now he's back with us on Tuesday nights, every 10:30 to 11 o'clock. It's the Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Let's reset. A lot of political discourse these days, stuff coming from the States, stuff coming from Canada. We had a lot brewing in the last 3 or 4 months in Canada, ever since Chrystia Freeland stepped down, ever since she refused to deliver the budget. We're in a situation now where we have a new Prime Minister designate, Mark Carney. He won the popular vote amongst Liberals. He doesn't have a seat, but he's their leader with a resounding, what is that, an 85% victory?
86%. Yeah.
Over Chrystia Freeland is the next closest. So he's the de facto Prime Minister of Canada.
So does that surprise you? Because that is overwhelming numbers coming from the left. Does that surprise you that he won in that fashion over Chrystia Freeland?
Well, no, not at all. Because listen, I said, I make the thumbnail for the thing, and it's like, listen, you get a new Carney, it's still the same circus. That party, they're playing catch up. They're going back on so many things that they basically built on the last 10 years, and they're going back on. You talk about carbon tax, you talk about the little circus
music from Trey.
And so you got Mark Carney stepping in. Of course they're going to vote for him. He's fresh and new. And they have so many ministers that stepped down from cabinet during Trudeau's during Trudeau's tenure, last 7 to 10 months of Trudeau's tenure. So many cabinet ministers just bailed on him. And how can you pick one of them to be the next leader?
I think that was a big part of why you saw the swing too, right? When the Conservatives got into double-digit numbers, and I think I was one of those here in the West that was a little bit skeptical about that. Like, you know what, they're going to put in another person, and I agree. It had to be somebody that at least appeared to be at an arm's length from Trudeau. But
he wasn't. But he's not.
No, not at all. And in fact, even this whole thing, like they're talking about, he's dropping the consumer carbon tax. All that means is getting passed on to the corporate side, which there will be no rebates for. It's the same thing. It's the same liberal.
And policy. He's the one who probably suggested it. He's probably the same guy who suggested the GST rebate on families before Christmas, because we know that Chrystia Freeland wasn't going for it. That's why she stepped down, because she thought it was stupid, which it was stupid. And he's probably the one that championed that. And they thought, he's going to be the next finance minister. Well, everything fell apart. He's now the next prime minister.
Yeah.
And so he was the guy who led the finances.
You got to educate me on this one. So I'm just a lowly Westerner. I've been serving Western Canada and through that Canada my entire life, once a proud Canadian. But I was hopeful that common sense would finally prevail in central Canada, where the entire election's decided. I mean, it's over by the time it gets to Winnipeg. What is it about the Liberals? Why people in Toronto and Quebec will suddenly rally behind that flag, even knowing that 2 + 2 = 4. In this case, it is going to be disastrous for Canada. It's going to be more worse. What is it that draws people? Do they just hate it? Like traditionally, is it like conservatives?
But listen, let's just be clear. Not everyone in Quebec stepped out to vote. There was a very low turnout for that Liberal leadership race in Quebec. And basically, there are people stepping up in Quebec and in Ontario. They're saying, we're done. We're not even showing up for that. So yeah, he won because you got no one left in the Liberal Party that's even worth a shake. What's he going to build a cabinet with if they do call an election and win?
The same people.
The big thing is he's got to call an election because for me, I know I got some snarky Susans on Twitter kind of attacking me, kind of educating me because I said, I don't know a lot about politics, but I think it's really weird to have the prime minister of your country as an unelected official. And then I got everyone telling me that, oh yeah, well, it happened with Danielle Smith and it happened with John Turner. And it's quite, there's a precedent for it. And I said, yeah, I know there's a precedent for it. I just think it's dumb. It's something that needs to be changed. If the Liberal Party sunk Canada with the members that were elected, they should sink as a party with the members that were elected so that we can get a new party in and they can
go ahead and have a leadership election for the head of the party. And that on that day, you launch straight into a 60-day.
So I got a lot of people telling me, well, you don't know politics. Yeah, I don't know politics. I don't know enough, but I know that when something smells foul, it's kind of, and it was foul. Listen, it was foul when Danielle Smith did it. I didn't like it when she all of a sudden was the leader of the UPC. She didn't even have a seat and she had to choose a place to run where she could win. And I don't like it now. I think it's weird. It means that I could become the next prime minister of Canada if I become best friends with the guy that's leaving. And I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong.
You could do it on year 2 of a mandate and just pass the torch for the next 3 years.
And someone like Mark Carney, I mean, there's a lot of questions around him. He they were talking on the news. They said, oh, he raised so much money, the most money ever raised. Well, of course, he was the governor of the Central Bank of Canada and England. He's got
and sitting at the head of the company. Brookfield that just moved to New York, and several other boards
that he moved to New York.
He was with the UN for 5 years. He just makes a couple of calls, and there's tons of money coming in.
Yeah,
but
the money's
going. What is it with the people that don't see through this? It's so frustrating to me, and I get worried. I think it's going to be a little bit like the American election, where you have that.
You know what it is?
Phase. What's that?
So I always have to preface this because if there's some person that's listening that's ultra liberal, they're going to think I'm a super hard right. I'm not a super hard right, but I know that when it comes to the liberals and a lot of the ultra left, one of the best strategies that Justin Trudeau had when he didn't know what to say is he wouldn't say anything, and they are willing to forgive. So if he doesn't have to explain himself, like he didn't have to explain himself to his constituents to keep their votes. He doesn't have to hold himself accountable. Like right now, we've got a bit of a scandal in Alberta with the UPC and the AHS thing going on. She's going to have to be accountable to conservative voters.
Conservative voters will hold her to the count.
Yes.
That's why we vote out our leaders all the time. What is it on the left that is just hell or high water? I'm going to go down with this ship. And
I don't know.
A captain that might. The one thing I'm going to say about Carney, though, I'm purely talking policy. Trudeau, I couldn't stomach the guy. Right?
Yeah, no.
Carney, I get it. I get it. He's a powerful guy, held some big positions. I just don't like his policy. I just can't believe people don't see through it. I don't get it.
Well, one guy whose policy we do like before we get the break is a lot of tough talk in the last few weeks from Donald Trump about tariffs. They're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. Doug Ford, say what you want. Some people love the Ford, some people don't. He threatened to turn off the power, and he did some tough talk with Trump, and it had Trump reeling a bit. On his Truth Social, he says, "How dare Canada turn off the electricity? It's going to hurt the little people. How dare they do that?" Like he really hit him where it hurts. And
you want my take on that?
Go ahead.
I absolutely loved it. First off, when he did that, I was like, guys, this is stupid. You are escalating it far beyond where you're supposed to go once you start cutting power off to a country. But that's how you deal with a huge personality like Trump. You come up there with something ridiculous to match his ridiculousness, right? Show him that you're playing the same game with him. And Trump, what did he do? He came over the top and said, I'm doubling tariff for all of Canada. But once that's out of the way, okay, now let's talk. Ford has a talk with Lutnick. They get things straightened around. Trump comes out and says, yeah, he's trying to be the strong man. I respect that. He backed off the energy prices as he should. We're backing off our tariffs. We're getting close to a deal, right? Like, I love it. I think that's how you have to take a guy like Trump.
I think so as well. So let me ask you this question. Here in Alberta, Danielle Smith tried her very best to endear herself to Donald. Do you think she picked the wrong strategy, or should she have gone Doug Ford and been like, hey, listen, I know the opinion about West versus Eastern Canada, but I'm saying if Canada was united and Danielle Smith had all those cards, as she said, a Trump card, do you think she should have played it the way Doug did and see what happens? Or
I think it's a difference in personality. I'm a little surprised that she didn't. At the end of the day, I don't think either of them were going to do it. It was a play, a part of the theater and the dance. It's very dangerous to start messing with something as important as energy. And it's also, she wants to make sure that she was maintaining Alberta's sovereignty over our resources and not surrendering that to Canada. But yeah, I think she might have missed the opportunity. Dangerous game though, Chev. I mean,
and it's still playing out. I mean, it could change tomorrow, could change again. It's been that type of year as this started. As we said in the poem, we like to lean into other things, but the last few weeks, you can't help but pick that low-hanging fruit that's, Canadian politics, American politics, and everything happening in the world. Guys, listen, we're happy that you come and play with us. Come and watch us. Comments are flying, and read some of them in the break. Remember to follow us at Chevy and Nasty on all your socials. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll get back into sports.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
And we're back. He's Chevy on the left. I'm Nasty. And welcome to segment 2 of the ride. First off, I want to say Ernie and Diana in Regina joining us late. Good to see you guys are around and able to join us here tonight. Appreciate that.
Good to see all you guys. Good to see all you guys. That was me who dropped the love you listeners. I mean, we got so many opinions, so many people coming from different walks of life here. I mean, Chris Rubio, who joins us almost every week from Lewiston, Idaho, the easternmost port of the Pacific Ocean, we learned last week, which is pretty interesting. It's great to interact with you guys, and the politics can sure get us going, but we want to shift gears a bit. We want to, we don't want to just lead into politics, So where do you want to go, Sheldon?
Well, I'm going to ask you a question, and this one kind of relates back to, I'm going to make it relate back to when we played. Chevy was always the guy, whether it was during conditioning or in the locker room, a real heart guy, heart and soul of the locker room of the team, of the special teams. But this weekend, you're showing showcasing a different kind of heart. You were, I understand, walking around with a heart monitor around Calgary this weekend. What's going on with that, Chev?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up. Like, so you talk about men's health, and we mentioned it before when we were talking about the pandemic, right? And that time, I told you I had a tumor in my neck. There was loneliness, isolation, and in that moment, or in those moments in the pandemic, I'm not married anymore. Like I said, girlfriend lives away, family's away, kids are young. I realize I'm the only advocate for my own health. I really am the only advocate. And for years, being a professional athlete, we talk about this, the age of invincibility. Nothing can touch me. Nothing can hurt me. And, around, I guess, just prior to the pandemic going, and in that time, I started seeing something. Well, I had a couple of things going on, a couple of health issues that every middle-aged man, you got certain things going on. And one of them was that tumor. And I was like, man, I got to follow this up. And it's hard. Like I'm an ADD guy. I don't follow through with things. I say I'm going to do stuff. I might, do the first 5 steps of a 10-step program, a workout, supplements, whatever. I just don't follow through, but I really had to follow through in that moment. And fast forward to now, last year, my doctor wanted to prescribe me actually some pills for ADD. I want to get on some meds so that I can focus a little bit, because it's great for the show when you're bing, bang, boom, but when you're trying to focus on life, it can be very hard. So anyhow, as part of the prescriptive process, he asked me to do an ECG, and I did this ECG, and some things didn't seem right, so he referred me to a cardiologist. And a year later, I get into a cardiologist finally, and they put me through a battery of tests. So I did a stress test on Friday. I did another test a few weeks earlier. And then I have to wear this heart monitor for 24 hours. It's called a Holter. And basically it just measures beats to see if there's any irregularities, see what's going on. So I wear this thing. I look like, you remember the old Weapon X comic book, Wolverine, when he becomes Wolverine, and he's got like all these electrodes, and that's what I looked like. I felt like
you actually had electrodes hooked up to multiple locations in your.
Yeah. So I had like 3. I think they have 3, right? It wasn't really Weapon X. It was more like Tony Stark wearing his little thing in the middle. But
you didn't get the cool blades coming out of your.
I didn't get any blades coming out of my arms. But yeah, so I am just trying to follow through on my health. We talked last week about you getting back in the gym. We always talk about my battles with sugar and trying to stem that, because I know that it could lead through to obesity and diabetes and all that. Well, I'm just trying to make sure that everything's good on the baseline with my heart. I'm going to go back to my doctor. I do a yearly checkup, make sure that everything's good. And if he says, hey, let's check something out, I don't just put the requisition on a table and let it pile up for the year. I actually am following through. So yeah, that's what I was doing on the weekend, or at least Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, it was good. And you know what? I worked to the Montreal Canadiens game. The Canadiens played the Flames on Saturday after losing to the Oilers. Yes, Trey and Sheldon. The Habs lost to the Oilers in overtime on Thursday night with 6 seconds left. Connor McDavid scored. I know. I thought we would rebound on Saturday. But we lost on Saturday as well. It was 1-0. The Flames won, but we met Lanny MacDonald. MacDonald in the suite. We were graciously provided tickets. My son and I. There's Brett and me. We're in the suite with Daryl, who tonight is watching Jelly Roll at the set. But we were sitting in the seats, and lo and behold, you have Lanny MacDonald there, and to Daryl's left is Colin Patterson. So we're going to get both those guys on the show, and they might even come to our men's mental health night. But we talk about the heart. A lot of people know this, but Lanny MacDonald, he had a heart attack last year that he almost died at the airport, and we talked about that a little bit.
I think he did die at the airport. I mean, we've
known
Lanny for good. That was a real serious night. And in fact, if I recall correctly, wasn't it a retired policeman? Weren't there just some people on, like a nurse and a retired policeman that just happened to be there on that flight and were able to step in and
so there were 2 nurses and an off-duty police officer that performed the initial CPR on him that brought him back to life.
How fortunate is that? Like, if you think about that, if that's something like that's going to happen to you, your wife, your dad, your mom, to have those kind of people just there, because that's serious stuff.
Well, and it's a really simple skill to learn. Like, I mean, you know, again, even if you don't have the certification, you could go on YouTube and you could make sure that you know what to do in case of that emergency. But, you know, it's a real simple certification to get. It's a life-saving. I obviously have it because of my work in the fire department. And, you know, I've had to perform CPR several times on people. And that's what I spoke to Lanny about, because, you know, what people don't understand, you watch in the movies, you know, someone performs CPR and then the person gets up and they go back to their regular activities.
Yeah.
When you perform CPR, you're breaking ribs, you're cracking sternums. It's a really violent act to get someone back to life. It's not like a, you know, really small put, like you got me reefing on you. And and at the age that Lanny is, I don't know how old he is, but he's got to be up there now, right? Like, how old do you think Lanny is? 60s for sure, 70s, right? Yeah, maybe 70. Like, he had a whole bunch of cracked ribs and sternum, and we talked about that. And he said, you know, the hardest. I mean, obviously, he's so grateful to be alive, but the recovery. He's 72.
Oh God, yeah.
Can you imagine a 72-year-old walking around? I mean, he's in great shape, so he's lucky he probably recovered better. But, you know, in everyday life, when you're doing CPR on a senior, I mean, it's a tough road. And he talked about it. He was like, you know, he's still doing physio so that he can get the range of motion so that he could play golf again. But he's so thankful, right? Like,
that comment right there is what I love, though, because he's still Lanny. I mean, he's still, I think when you're in a recovery situation, if this was COVID and you're locked up in a place by yourself, it's hard to find that zest for life. But I love what you said there, where I just want to swing golf club again.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it's those extra reasons why it keeps you going through your treatment and your rehab. But it's also the reason why, like you said, when you have a health scare come up, you got to go check it out. Yeah. A lot of times we really do feel like, okay, well, you know, it's always been fine before. This time will be fine, right? And that's yeah. So yeah, good. So what was that like actually sitting there? Because I think I've met Lanny once or twice, but I've never got to spend time in a booth. Is he still telling stories and the life of the party? Or
well, he was great. Like, he's, you know, when we talk about, you know, we talked before about Wayne Gretzky and Lemieux. When I think of a hockey player that I've met that actually truly represents Canada to me, I think of Lanny MacDonald. And maybe I'm biased because I've been in Calgary now for 20 years, but he truly represents a type of Canadiana for me. Just like a guy that will come up to you and shake your hand, and he's not awkward. He's just a really, like, he just a super man of the people. Like, he saw me right away, and I had met him last year, and I talked to him about coming on our show, and he will come when we're ready to have him. So he recognized me. He's like, "What are you doing with the Canadians jersey?" You know, and I had to explain that to him. Then he saw Brett, and he was super gracious to Brett. And, you know, let's be real. My son is 16 years old. He doesn't know who Lanny MacDonald is, right? Like, that was an era before him. But I was like, Brett, you just met a legend. And when the Flames scored their first goal, Lanny was sitting right behind Brett, and he grabbed Brett on the shoulders, and Brett had a shoulder crank. He couldn't see. He's like, "Dad, I knew someone grabbed me, but I couldn't look to see who it was." And, you know, he was just so gracious. It was really cool. Super nice guy. Colin Patterson was also super gracious, gave us lots of time. And in fact, he's launching Calgary Flames alumni podcast, and he may be coming to our men's mental health movie night. So made some great connections watching the Habs lose, and had a super nice night. We'll talk a little bit about the horseradish later, but yeah, it was fun. We also met Joel Otto. Sheldon, he asked me a question. He says, Chevy, and I had met Joel Otto years before doing a bowling event, and he says, he looked at me, "You're wearing the jersey." He's like, "I get it. You grew up in Montreal. I didn't know you grew up in," and he's American, right, Joel Otto? He says, "You know, I get it, people like you that moved here, you know, wearing the jersey, but what is it with all the kids?" And it was like almost like a 50-50 ratio of Habs fans. Like, it was a lot. Like, the lineup of Habs fans was ridiculous before the game.
Yeah.
And And I didn't know how to answer that question because for me, it's in my blood. I tried to leave the Habs once. I moved to Calgary. I tried to adopt the Flames, cheer for them against the Habs, and I just couldn't do it. And I didn't know how to explain it other than, the Riders phenomena. Like, you grew up in this, like in the prairies. You're Riders. You grew up Riders fan. Explain how it gets passed on, because I think it's the same as that.
Well, I think it's just natural for kids, because you got to look at the age your kids are when you start introducing them to the favorite team. In fact, you don't even have to look at it. It's from the time I've got pictures with my boys. Now, at this time, I was just off with playing with the Stamps, so I still had like Stamps gear on, watching the Stamps in the playoffs, and I've got pictures with my son holding him when he was just a week old. They're brought up into that culture, and there's something about sports and sports team allegiances. It's almost like religion or like politics is, except that you're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
But there's something about the identity of where you're from. You consider yourself, a French Canadian with Italian roots, right? Probably more of the Italian side.
I'm
right?
Montreal. I consider myself a Montreal.
You're Montrealer. I'm a prairie guy with Ukrainian descent, and you never lose that. And that's a big part of your identity. So I think, from that standpoint, it's really hard to change that and to get it out of your family lines. The worst thing you could do for you would have been marrying a girl who's a big Bruins fan. Right? That would have been scandalous.
Oh, yeah.
But nowadays, I was a lot like you. When we first came to Calgary, and I've always done this wherever I played, I get in and I support the local teams, never thinking you're going to be there forever. But you get behind it. It's way more fun. You're getting tickets to Flames games. You're getting to know the guys through the show or different events. And it's awesome. Great guys. But somewhere along the way, you can't change what's in your blood. Trey gave you crap for calling it genetic. Well, it almost is genetic.
Yeah.
It's not quite genetic, but it is something with your roots, and you can't screw with somebody's roots. It doesn't change.
For me, it happened. My dad, I left hockey for a long time. When they traded Patrick Waugh in Montreal, that was the last straw for me. I was a Leafs fan for a bit. I just divorced the Habs. Then I got into football, and I was learning the game. I was watching football. I left hockey for a number of years. When I moved to Calgary, my dad was a huge PK Subban fan. He loved the Habs. And so I remember one day, it was a Saturday afternoon, I threw on the Flames jersey. My dad was in Montreal watching the Habs against the Flames. I was trying to chirp my dad, and puck dropped, and I could not cheer for the Flames. I tried to.
Connection with your dad. You're sitting there just like you were when you were a kid, like you were back in the day, right?
Absolutely. I have a shelf over there. You can't see it in camera. It's all my old Montreal Canadiens memorabilia. It's just a couple of things. A Larry Robinson that reminds me of my dad. The puck that hit me in the forehead when I was at the Montreal Forum. My first Canadiens cap. I got my first, I can't leave it. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. And I'm sure that's how it is, whether you're a Riders fan, I assume a Yankees fan. Like if you're a New Yorker and you've decided to move to Florida, and you still love baseball, you might be a Marlins fan. But the minute the Yankees roll into town, you got to tell me that you're putting on your Yankees jersey, right? Or a Boston guy. Like in the States, you could move anywhere, right? Like I got to assume that if you were a Yankees fan or a Mets or a Dodgers fan, you're always going to be that, right? Like I don't know if I'm wrong about. Is a football team like that? Steelers, maybe. Like who would be
the Raiders used to be back in the day, right?
Well, they've moved everywhere.
Bears, but the Eagles. I think there's a lot of that loyalty in the NFL. The funny thing though, when you're growing up in Mayfair, Saskatchewan, right next to North Battleford, Saskatchewan, I don't know if you've checked how like the lay of the land for professional sports teams in Saskatchewan. There's not a lot. There's the Rough Riders, right? Yeah. And then you got the Pats and the Blades and all that stuff. So you really were free to pick a team based off of who you got to see on your Farmer Vision 3 channels on a weekend, or Hockey Night in Canada, things like that. But I think though, if you're raised in a city, you kind of do, look how polarized we are in politics and social issues. If you look back to sports, it's probably the first thing that you ever got behind in your entire life, other than I love my mom and dad. The next thing is what's your favorite food and who's your favorite sports team?
I think
I just add something to this conversation. No, you're in trouble.
Oh, I thought we were in trouble.
No. I want to add something to this conversation that you guys haven't brought up. I think how many of these people do you think came from Toronto and Montreal because it's cheaper to fly to Calgary and spend the night and the tickets are
It's
cheaper.
not cheaper to fly to Calgary. Have you tried to book a ticket? Oh my God!
I'm just asking.
It's a fair point.
It's a fair question, but honestly,
do people travel? Because like some teams they travel. Are these all like people just flying in on West? We should ask my wife that. How many Maple Leaf jerseys you see on the plane? I've got a feeling though that if Toronto fans were to travel, they'd probably go to Carolina. Or
there's
Nashville.
a buddy I know. He's a teacher in town. Hey Trey, thanks for popping in, by the way. And he's
It's a good question.
A good question. I don't think they travel because if you've tried to book a WestJet ticket to Toronto, Montreal, which I've been trying to do to get my kids to visit their grandma, it's like $700 a ticket just to fly. But there's a buddy in town. He's a teacher, Rob Hing. He's a diehard Montreal Canadiens fan. He's been featured on a couple of like local news and stuff. He's been on the wait list for Montreal Canadiens season tickets for years, and he finally got them a couple of years ago. And he lives in Calgary, but he's got season tickets for the Habs in Montreal, and he sells the tickets, but his basement is all Habs, and there's a lot of people like that. There is a lot of people, especially for the Leafs and the Habs. I guess, and out west, there was no Oilers before the 80s. There was no Flames before the 80s. So people had teams to cheer for. I assume that the Leafs and the Habs were probably the front runners. And as we said, passed down. Just like Riders fans that moved to Calgary, they never leave. I was in the waiting room. We talk about me being at the cardiac appointment the other day. I'm in the waiting room. There's a 80-year-old lady wearing she was wearing a Riders polo shirt. And two of the techs that work in Calgary, they walk by the waiting room. They're like, "Go Riders!" Yeah. And they were girls. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's something there. You wouldn't see that someone wearing a Flames jersey.
Regina's special though. The Riders are special.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sure.
We're both very lucky.
Where do you want to take it? We haven't even touched the Blitz or the NFL questions.
What does Trey say? Trey, pop in. Tell us. Yeah, Trey, pop in. Tell us what do you think?
Steer the shit back on the road.
Get it back on the road, Trey.
Let's do one Blitz question.
You ask it.
I want you guys. Okay. I want you two to discuss really quickly, 2 minutes each. Which QB signing in the NFL is going to make the biggest impact? We have Darnold going to the Seahawks. It's him. Fields going to the Jets. Not him. Geno to the Raiders, or Danny Dimes going to the Colts. Go.
Well, I'm going to just put it in real quickly, Chev, then you run with it. I think each of their old teams just got better by having these guys gone. You go.
I like that. Well, I don't know if Minnesota got better because Minnesota lost Darnold and they lost Daniel Jones, and they're waiting for J.J. McCarthy to get healed. So it looks like Aaron Rodgers might be going to Minnesota, pulling the Brett Favre, go to the Jets, go to the Vikings, and out. I think Darnold is the easiest pick to make his team best. I think Justin Fields is the easiest pick to make his team worse. I think Daniel Jones might be the one who impacts the team the most because he's going to push the starter. I think Daniel Jones, not because he's going to play best, but he's going to push the starter. Was it Richardson? Is Richardson? That's the name of the starter in Indianapolis. I think that's where they just gave him a boatload of money. And when you give a boatload of money to competition, it's incentive. I know Trey wants.
I'm going to cede my time to Trey. Trey, let him have it.
Ridiculous. I can't believe you just said Danny Dimes is going to make the biggest impact. He is a horrible quarterback.
I didn't say he's good.
You know what? I'll admit I was wrong. We had a chat yesterday that I said no CFL quarterback could play the NFL. Danny Dimes couldn't even play in the CFL. He's that bad.
He is that bad. You know what, Trey? I'm kind of with you, but I just I really like Geno to the Raiders, reconnected with Pete Carroll, but so many moves in the NFL this week. We're still waiting to see where Aaron Rodgers goes. DK Metcalf goes to the Steelers. That's going to make them better. Devontae Adams signs with the Rams. They all of a sudden look really good. Joey Bosa signing with the Bills after they get rid of Von Miller. Holy crap. So much going on. It's hard to keep up. Maybe next week we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive in the NFL. But I think, guys, let's take a break so we can take this one home in style. Thank you for the comments. Trey, thanks for popping in. Guys, follow us on all our socials. We'll be back after the break, and we'll wrap this up.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
It sure flies when you are having fun. It's the Tuesday night ride with Chevy and Nasty, Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media, YYC Business. Trey, I want to say this publicly. Thanks for popping on. We love when you do that and keep us in line. Sheldon, I'm glad I was able to get you seated. You ready to hit the studs and duds?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Where do we start? We want to start studs?
Well, I think we got our
Studs and duds.
You're up.
Okay, there's been a lot of news lately about aviation and difficulties, crashes, accidents, and disasters. Well, this week on Sunday, guys, if you were in Calgary, you know that we had these crazy 70 to 100 kilometer an hour winds. So we pulled these clips to just watch what these pilots go through. Remember, planes don't fly in straight lines. They fly relative to the wind. These big jets are landing sideways at the Calgary airport. It's called crabbing into the runway. At the last second, once their gear touched down, they hit hard rudder and get their nose right back. And these guys are right on the center line.
So
This
did
one right here
does everyone in the airplane at that point right there think it's going to flip after 2 weeks ago?
I'm sure. Now, picture yourself in the front of that plane. See how far that plane swings to the right? People are just jerked 20 to 30 feet. And this is my favorite one. Unfortunately, it's WestJet, but this is a hard landing. Oh, do you see that? Oh.
Look like the turbine there almost hit.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if that engine did touch, but yeah. So I think that last landing that we saw would be the one where I'm like having flashbacks of that flight in Toronto that ended up on its on his back. But
you know, and
my side are the pilots that are trained proficiently and can handle these crazy crosswinds. Folks, we're safe. That last one was a little bit scary though.
Yeah, that was scary. And my son wants to be a pilot, so I'm excited that he needs to watch this so he can learn and really focus. You know, speaking of WestJet planes, by the way, Daryl was telling us that he is taking for Performance Freight Management, taking shipments of all the new chairs that WestJet is putting in their airplanes to make the seats a little bit smaller and narrower. So Rubio, if we take a flight in a WestJet plane, we are going to be taking our shoes off and making sure we get the shoulder room going. My stud this week, I'm keeping it all food this week. Major League ballparks, Sheldon, have rolled out their opening day foods. You got to see some of these.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. They got some amazing foods. The Arizona filthy mac and fries, this here Chicago cheesy dog, Los Angeles chicken. Like the one that I'm on top of is that Baltimore warehouse burger. Now, Trey's going to put the link to this TMZ article that we found it. And if you have a chance, guys, take a look. Tell us what your favorite meal is. But I want to crush that burger. Like, I don't care if I get gout in both knees. I want
that. Looks good. That looks good, but you know what the problem is? You need something you could eat with one hand. Like this is great. I'm glad they're appealing to the foodies, But I'm going to be wearing this all over my jersey. My jersey is going to be like my bib. But here's my question to you, Chev. You're already paying $12 for a bad burger or a hot dog. What is this going to cost me at the games? I'm already spending a couple $100 on tickets. That looks like a $50 burger at the ballpark, doesn't it?
I don't know, man. But when I was a kid, I know it's not the same. When I used to go to Expos games, I used to buy the bleachers, go up, move down, buy a nice meal, and have a good time. In the old days,
I'm buying the kids popcorn. I'm going to sneak away, and I'm going to get one of those for myself.
Yeah, that's
my
good.
kids aren't watching.
All right, Sheldon, you're dud. You're dud.
Oh, my dud. Guys, I'll tell you what. There's something about we're talking about polarization and people making their stands. You take a look at what's going on in the States right now with Elon Musk. 4 years ago, he voted for Joe Biden and was completely anti-Trump, trolled the right, trolled Trump, until the point that, he started to kind of see the light and say, okay, we need to make some changes. Now, what happens? People are burning Tesla trucks all over the country. 4 of them in Seattle just the other day. Molotov cocktails being thrown in Oregon, along with gunshots into dealerships. What is it with people when it comes to expressing their view on a side of the polarized landscape that is politics, that it is okay to shoot guns into dealerships because you don't agree with the guy's politics? Yeah. I get protests. Protests are annoying. Stand out there all day and protest. It is your right. But Molotov cocktails, burning trucks, and firing gunshots, dude, that's dangerous. I don't know how we step back from this, but those are my duds. Guys, relax. It's going to be okay. Politics are designed so you don't get your way all the time. That's why every 4 to 8 years, governments change, and they should change. You got to have both sides, and you got to have a little bit of patience when the other team wins.
The temperature of the world, it's a little crazy now. And yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, you might not like the Elon, you might not like Trump, but most of the time,
4 years ago,
you're attacking people who bought those cars, and you're not hurting him. You're not hurting him. Trump just bought a Tesla today off of Elon.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's lost like hundreds of millions of dollars already in business value. He doesn't care. He's got a job to do. He's going to do it. He can recover that $100 million with his next company that flies you to, I don't know, Tenor Centauri or whatever that star is. Alpha Centauri.
It's
going to be his next. Is it going to be his next destination?
His next. I watched a funny movie based on that Mickey 17, but I'll move on. Keeping it with food. My dud. This is my dud. Went to the game the other day. We had some Montreal smoked meat, horseradish. Sheldon. I have this. We get a horseradish there, and Daryl from Performance Freight Management, he was there. He had a little teaspoon, and all of a sudden he just starts like tweaking out. We looked at him, and he's like, "Oh, this stuff's hot." And Brett's like, "Oh, we can handle hot stuff." So my son Brett, Daryl says, if you could take a teaspoon of this
Beaver extra hot horseradish,
that's the brand. You'll get to another game. So Brett I loaded him 2 forkfuls up on a piece of meat. He throws it in. And next thing you know, he's standing up, and he's like, his face was a little red, and he grabs his Kleenex to spit out his food. I'm like, what is going on? We're like in a restaurant. Like, Brett, come on, don't be so dramatic. Like, okay, it's probably hot, but you're overdoing it, right? And so I had to prove it. So I got half of what my son did. I put it on a piece of smoked meat. I put it in my mouth. 5 seconds, maybe 3. Nothing happened, and then all of a sudden, Sheldon, the Beaver extra hot horseradish, it stopped my lungs from working. Like, I could not breathe. I was trying to get air into my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I think if that cardiac monitor probably registered some improper beats, because I swear it wasn't hot. It was like wasabi peas, but times a million. It did something to me physiologically that I could no longer breathe. And I could not control. I couldn't even voluntarily control. I thought I was drowning. And I thought, man, if someone actually chugged a cup of that stuff, they would be dead. They'd be dead. So Beaver horseradish is my dud.
Wow.
They should.
I've had hot wasabi, and I'm sorry, it can be hot. I've had hot horseradish, but I've never had that paralysis from it. But like listener Todd Kozak says, that's his brand. If it says Beaver, Chevy, you just eat it.
I tried to just eat it. That Beaver was not liking it.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I was.
I've had hot. I've never had that shocking hot before.
Sheldon, it wasn't even hot.
Are you sensitive to hot foods? Like, do you enjoy Are you a hot sauce on your eggs kind of guy, Tabasco, or?
I'm not always hot sauce. I like hot sauce. I like spicy. Like sometimes if I make like a tiki masala chicken, I'll throw in some extra chili flakes, sometimes on top of my pizza. I like spice. I like heat, but I don't like it to take away from the taste of the food that I'm eating. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that
like,
make,
like when you're a kid and you go for who can eat the hottest hot wings. Like it's not about that. But
No.
I personally, I like hot sauce. For me, like, and the problem is once you get that taste for that heat, it's hard to come back from that, right? Like it makes anything from soups to sandwiches, anything. Once you get the taste for the heat, it's hard to not have it.
Hey, wait a second. I have a bone to pick. Rubio's called me. He says, I never had anything. Listen, dude, I'm Italian. I eat hot stuff all the time. I'm telling you, Rubio, you know, you're going to have to change your, if you had this beaver horseradish, you're going to have to change your logo because this beaver horseradish would grow hair on your logo. That's how hot this stuff is, bro. Like, it's not, it wasn't even hot. It produced a chemical. It's like you ever clean your house and you spray bleach in your toilets, but then you spray Windex and all of a sudden the two chemicals mix and it could actually kill you. Yeah. No, it could actually kill you. Like bleach and ammonia could kill you, right? That's why you keep them separate. A PSA. Well, that's what it felt like. It felt like two chemicals that interacted in my body and I could not breathe. My son was the same. This is not hot. I can handle hot. I don't even mind a hot challenge where like it's burning. This was not burning. I thought I was going to die. I honestly thought I was going to die. I thought the beaver.
How'd you feel the next morning?
I was fine the next morning, but in that moment,
like,
Daryl was laughing.
Coming out, no problems, no complications. That'd be the next thing that your heart monitor might start tweaking on a little bit.
Look at Rubio. He's had beaver cream. Listen, I don't know where this is going. But no,
there's some messages I think we're just not going to read now. But
yeah,
this is getting out of hand now, guys. That's the whole errors and omissions slide right there. Is the guys in the chat right now?
Okay, so we're doing something new tonight. Trey, welcome back to the show. We got errors and omissions. Trey's gonna come and tell us where we messed up tonight. Let us know and go easy on us. But so 5 ways we messed up tonight.
5 ways he messed up. Well, you guys were actually pretty solid. Just a little bit of fact here on Mario Lemieux. You were right. He did have Hodgkin's lymphoma twice. And Nasty, you're also right. He did have that severe back pain to the point where other teammates had to tie his skates.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty crazy. And he did have to do it twice. So I do think Mario's career was cut a little too short, but I'm an Oilers fan, so
yeah, but I was correct when I said that he'll never, although a great Canadian player, he'll always be in Wayne Gretzky's shadow. That is correct.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too, because he couldn't put up the numbers for sure. Any other mistakes we made, Padawan?
I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but the Calgary Stampeders have actually not retired the number 66. You guys were talking about it.
So how come no one's worn it?
Yeah, no one's worn it.
I'll tell you why. Because Gio Hopkins knows it's going to be retired at some point, and he's not going to risk putting it off for 10 years by giving it to some kid you think is going to get cut and ends up being the next greatest thing in the CFL.
So actually, someone does wear it right now for the Stampeders. His name is Bryce Bell.
Okay.
He's an offensive lineman. He missed half the season this year. But I think you are right. I think probably he's the only person I could find in the last 10 years to have worn it.
Okay.
Good number Stamps. So there might be something there with Hansen. And then last thing, I still can't believe you said it. I can't believe you said Daniel Jones was going to be because that's just no, that's not true at all. He is terrible.
Yeah. I figured that wouldn't go over well with you.
I think you just said it to rile me up.
Well, yeah, and I think it was pretty effective. Trey, thanks for keeping our feet to the fire and making sure that we're speaking nothing but the truth here tonight.
Yeah, of course.
And great job again, as always. He added a couple new twists to the show, which Chevy and I both noticed, and I hope you guys at home did as well. Thanks to Chevy for joining us. Another great episode. I had a blast with this one. And of course, thanks to all of you guys for joining us here tonight. It was a blast. The comment section is still just going. I absolutely love it. But it is that time where we're going to call it a night. But thanks once again for joining us on the ride, and we'll see you all next Tuesday at 10:30 Mountain Standard Time.
Another pill. Money makes you happy. Heaven isn't real. You won't find nobody to love because your heart's too broke. Now I know you ain't nothing but a liar. Yeah, I walk right out the fire. Yeah, you try to keep me down, try to put me underground, but I'm only going higher. I can hear you in my head, in my bed when I'm dreaming. You try to be my friend,